Let's talk about some of those user experiences. You have a new video service called Vine, which is a 6-second loop. Tell me why you developed that product and why 6 seconds.
Yeah, so great. I love talking about Vine, and I could talk about it for hours.
Finally, we have something he'll talk about.
So Vine was actually created by these three fellas in New York who were out raising money for the product, and one of their initial investors introduced them to Jack Dorsey, one of the co-founders of Twitter. Jack called me when he saw it and said, you have to see these guys before they go back to New York. They had not launched the product yet. It was in the very early stages of developing it. I saw it that day. We acquired the company, changed the product a bit with those folks in New York, and launched it. It is, as you just mentioned, it's a 6-second, very short videos. They loop, so it just keeps playing over and over and over. And when you sort of scroll through your Vine feed, they autoplay. You don't have to hit a play button. They just sort of start playing as they come into view. And it's audio and video. The beauty of Vine, when Jack and I saw it that day, that those guys had created, we thought, was that, like Twitter, where you have the 140 characters, that the 6 seconds would create this entirely new artistic language. And that super tight constraint would mean that people would have to be creative in all sorts of new ways that they hadn't had to be creative before when they thought about free-form video. And indeed, that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing people develop this amazing language within that 6-second video constraint that's just as beautiful and organic as the 140-character language that, you know, was the genesis of hashtags.
And there are 13 million users or something like that now?
It's growing remarkably well. I mean, I've said publicly before, and I'll say it again, better than we could have ever hoped. And so we're just delighted with the success of that. Those guys are, you know, they're in their own space in New York. I want them building this and thinking about it organically in the context of what they've done for video, and not encumbered by, for example, well, we have to go monetize that right now. I'm just not worried about that at all. I'm letting them run with this amazing thing they've developed, and I think we'll leave it alone for quite some time.
Because Instagram has now launched its own video service, right? Are you concerned about that?
You know, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Those guys launched these, their 15-second videos. I can't worry about, and I don't like to think about, reacting to what other people do in the market. I think that's a failure of strategy if you're running your business based on, look what those guys did, right? It's like driving by looking in the rearview mirror. That guy behind me just changed lanes. Maybe I should change lanes. And then the other thing about it is, if you're running your business that way, the people who work for you, it's not fun. It's not particularly exciting to think about, wait a minute, those guys did that, we have to go do that. That's not a fun place to go to work in the morning. It's not particularly creative, and it's not particularly courageous. So I want the product people that work for me on Twitter, on Vine, on Twitter Music, on all the sorts of things we create, to be thinking, you know, I recently stood in front of the design team at Twitter and said, until you guys bring something to me that I say, that's crazy, we would never do that, you're not being courageous enough, right? So I want to see more courage in the product designs. And I think that's a fun place to work, not a go do what that thing did.